Hi everyone, I'm here. In 2018, a guy from Texas called Josh Cater was torn between two difficult decisions. He had to pick between the surgery that could save his dog's life or paying his rent. His dog, a 3-year-old bulldog named Winston, was diagnosed with a rare disease, which gave him an 11% chance of survival. His landlord was also threatening to kick them out of their home if they didn't pay the rent by the end of the month. So they had to make a decision. What would they choose? Surgery or rent? But they managed to find a way to do both. And now Winston is happy and healthy. And Josh's story went viral because it shows us how important our pets are to us. When Josh got Winston as a puppy, he knew he had made the right decision when Winston licked him for the first time. It was love at first sight. Although Winston had some health issues when he was a puppy, nothing could stop their bond. Josh loved taking Winston on adventures. They would go everywhere together. Josh said, "I can take him anywhere. He's really good around other people. He's a really great dog." He added that Winston has always been a part of the family. He's more than just a pet. He's family. I grew up with dogs. I've always had dogs in my life. Unfortunately, one day Winston properly, after several trips to the vet and many tests, the family received a devastating diagnosis. Winston had idiopathic epilepsy. The vet told them that it was most likely genetic, but they couldn't be sure. This meant that Winston would have random seizures that could get worse over time, and there was no cure. However, the family were happy that they at least knew what was wrong with Winston. They felt that they could deal with this. They gave Winston medication to help control his seizures and thought that everything was going well. But then Winston began having more seizures. Even while he was getting treatment, he was also losing weight and seemed depressed. By November 2017, Winston's condition was very bad. He could hardly walk, and his eyes seemed lifeless. It was obvious that something else was wrong. Winston needed another checkup. The X-rays revealed a terrible truth. Winston had cancer. He had a tumor in his abdomen. Doctors were shocked that the tumor had gone so far without being detected. They told Josh that Winston had only a 10% chance of survival. Josh was devastated. How could he save his best friend? There was only one option: surgery. The family took out a loan and paid the $6,500 fee to remove the tumor. But they soon realized that this was not going to be easy. Winston had a rare form of cancer. It was called a malignant peripheral nerve sheath tumor. It was growing on his spine, and doctors had never operated on a dog with this type of cancer before. This meant that there were risks involved with the operation. Dr. Garcia said, "We have removed tumors like this from humans, but we've never done it from a dog. We don't know how it will respond or react to surgery." The surgery was long and difficult. It took 4 hours instead of the predicted 3. But thankfully it was a success. The tumor was benign, meaning it hadn't spread. But this did not mean that Winston would survive. He still had a long recovery period ahead of him. At first, Winston made progress. He gained weight and started walking again. But unfortunately, after a few weeks, he stopped eating. It seemed that all the stress had made him lose his appetite. His condition quickly got worse, and he had trouble breathing. Once again, the family rushed him to the hospital. A scan showed that Winston's windpipe was blocked by fluid. To make things worse, the weather was extremely cold, and Winston's body couldn't keep itself warm. They decided to put him in an oxygen box so he could rest. Sadly, Winston passed away a few days later. Although Winston was gone, Josh and his family were glad that they had tried everything they could to save him. Just a week before Winston's diagnosis, Josh and his wife had received a notice from their landlord saying that they had to pay the rent or they would be kicked out onto the street. They were already struggling financially from paying Winston's medical bills. So they made a Facebook post explaining their situation They asked if anyone could lend them $1,000 so they could stay in their house. The post went viral, and they were soon contacted by dozens of people. Doctors were able to remove Winston's tumor without doing any damage to his spinal cord. At first, Winston was very weak, but he slowly started to get better. His appetite returned, and he regained his energy. Then one day, Winston stopped seizing. It was amazing news, but it didn't last for long. A few months later, the seizures started again, but they were more intense than before. Something was definitely wrong. The family took Winston back to the vet. They ran tests and discovered that Winston's cancer had returned. It was growing around his heart and pressing against it, which explained why he suddenly started seizing. The vet told them that there was nothing they could do. Winston's cancer was incurable. He wouldn't make it much longer. Winston's parents were devastated, but they knew they had to remain strong for Winston's sake. They wanted his final days to be as happy as possible, so they spent as much time as they could with him. But after a few weeks, Winston's condition started to get worse. He couldn't walk and had difficulty breathing. They took him to the vet one last time. There they made Winston comfortable and let him rest. He passed away peacefully, surrounded by his loving family. His parents cried as they said goodbye to him, but they knew that they had done everything they could for Winston. Dr. Garcia said, "They made the right call bringing him here. They did everything they could for the dog. They really gave him a good life." Josh shared his story online to raise awareness about canine cancer. He also thanked the people who donated to help him pay his rent. Winston was part of our family. He was like a son to us. We couldn't imagine life without him. We're so grateful to everyone who helped us during this difficult time. In an interview, Josh talked about how special Winston was. He was a loving dog who was always happy to see us. He never met a stranger and loved going on walks. We miss him so much. When Josh got Winston, he had no idea what a big impact the dog would have on his life. They became close friends, and Winston gave him unconditional love every day. It's clear that the feeling was mutual. Winston loved Josh and was grateful for everything he did for him. Do you think Josh made the right decision by saving his dog's life? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to hear more touching stories, stay tuned. And remember to subscribe for new videos every day.